Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fabulous episode of Every Day is a Train Wreck. I'm your host or conductress, Marley Majcher, and I have a very secret and special guest to introduce you guys to. Now, hopefully you've done your homework and you've listened to all of the past episodes, but if you have not, you must go back to Miss Christina Robio, Christina of Pasadena, and listen to that episode because she and I, as usual, got on into all kinds of rabbit holes. And one of those rabbit holes involved discussing a gentleman known only to you guys to this point as... Now, Christina said she would deliver the beast to the podcast. I didn't know at the moment that I believed her that she would actually do it and do it as quickly as she did. But without further ado, I am so excited to introduce you to one of my longtime friends who definitely weave a yarn or two and definitely give us some fabulous backstory. So, Joe Cornet, welcome to the program.
Hello. Hello, Marley. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Hello, world. Okay, so Joe, you are one of the most colorful people I know. I think in the podcast with Christina, I described you not only as always impeccably dressed, but in the ascot, in the seasonal appropriately dressed equivalent of the ascot and the blazer. So if it's winter, it might be velvet, but as we need to know that were it spring, it would not be velvet. It would be just whatever exactly it is supposed to be. Okay?
Isn't that the way it's supposed to be?
Well, yes, but it never happened.
Except today you get me in my Bing Crosby shirt.
Well, I like Bing Crosby. For those of you who are just listening to the podcast, you are not going to get to see it. So you'll have to check it out on the other platforms on YouTube or something else because we have Joe's on-air sign in the background. We have the Bing Crosby shirt. It pretty much doesn't get better than this. So I love it. Now, Joe, there are a lot of bodies that are buried and a lot we could focus on. So what do you think we should focus on first? Should we focus on your rise to stardom in your movie career? Should you start telling them a little bit about your background so that they have a little bit of backstory? Because you're not in Pasadena at the moment, but...
No, I am.
Oh, you are?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yay. Okay, good. For some reason, I thought you were still on the other side of town being very cool.
No, actually, I moved back here about 2.5, almost 3 years ago.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. All right. So give us your backstory. Give us your real career stuff, because we're going to get to what you do now. But how did it all start?
Well, I'll try to simplify it. Okay. So basically, I was in the commercial real estate business for a number of years, mainly in designing and building commercial retail structures, mostly in Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico. And I was involved with that, 20 years more, I guess. And right around the time of the economic meltdown of about 2008, 2000.
I was going to say, which one? Yeah.
I was spared early on, and it didn't really hit me until about a year in. And I thought, this is not so much fun anymore, you know? So I got out of there, just barely saving my ass, and took the lumps I had to, like we all did.
Yeah.
And I kind of sat around and was wondering, okay, what does the next phase bring? And, you know, I think it was F. Scott Fitzgerald said there are no second acts in American life. And I'm here to say that's not true. But I guess I sort of took it easy for about a year. And one thing led to another. Many years earlier, when I used to make these Super 8 movies and millimeter movies. And I was always kind of a photographer at heart anyway, still photography as well. At that time, in 2009, 2000 really, I started digitizing all these stupid little movies.
Stuff that you had made from way back.
Way back in high school and even before. And a friend of mine said, you know, it'd be fun to remake one of these today, but with digital capability. I'm a film sprocket kind of guy, you know, I'm analog. I was never into digital photography. And I said, well, that's very interesting. What do you mean? He said, well, you know, you can have access to all kinds of wonderful digital equipment, cameras and editing software. And you could maybe remake one of these now or take the footage from however many years ago and incorporate it in like something now. And I thought, My God, that's interesting.
Now, this wasn't Dean Beatty, was it?
This was not Dean Beatty.
Okay.
It was somebody even crazier than Dean Beatty. If you believe it, and to make that suggestion is crazy in and of itself. So I guess what happened was I started writing a lot, and I took a lot of seminars and classes, and not only just screenwriting and writing, but also in film work and acting workshops and things like this. And I started to build up this big sort of catalog of, what I call it was sort of my dress rehearsal phase. And I don't remember exactly when it was, but I was taking this. It was a very famous character actor who I was very close with. He passed away 2 summers ago. And I was very close with him, and I was taking his film actor workshop, and he kind of encouraged me more than anybody. And I started to meet people. And I started not only to meet like legitimate film people, but legitimate actors and like guys that had been around for years. And I thought, I had been like everybody who fools around with a camera. I had been making these silly little projects and throwing them up on YouTube. And, that was my great thrill, like it always is.
Now, pause for a second, because what immediately comes to mind to me is, so we have the Great Recession of 2008, now 2009, 2010. Are you taking these classes, like these workshops and all this stuff, because you can, or are you taking because you're thinking like, what's my next career going to be? I mean, like, how seriously are you looking at this? Are you going, I'm going to now be Robert Redford or Clint Eastwood? Or are you just kind of like, hey, listen, I don't know what I'm going to do right now, so this is going to keep me kind of out of trouble?
I think it was more the latter, because I never really suspected that this would morph into something more serious. I always regard this journey as my hobby, because it was always a hobby of mine, right. Cameras. This was my hobby that turned into, if I could call it that, a career.
Right.
And I didn't take it seriously at first at all. And then I started to reassess everything. And I thought, I have access to these wonderfully talented people, and they want to do something just for fun, you know? And so we started I started working with various people, and we made, 10-minute projects, 5-minute projects, 20-minute projects. And then I finally stepped out and I did 2, one of which remains to this day unfinished, but 2 films that were about 50 plus minutes in length.
And where are you posting these at this point?
Well, neither one of those can be seen. Actually, if you know where to track it down, the first one of these 2 can be found on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And it's actually not too terrible. But again, I wasn't very serious. I was doing the work just for the sake of doing it. And I never in a million years thought it would go somewhere. So
you're just kind of, because I remember at everybody's favorite watering hole, the Chop House, talking to Christina. And it would be like, oh, what's Joe up to? Because I always ask about you, and I'm always like, because you always doing interesting things. And so she would kind of, tell me you're shooting these movies and et cetera. And I was like, at first I thought, wow, did I miss the memo that this was always supposed to be serious? So you were just having fun. You're putting Christina in it and other people, right?
Christina was in one.
Yeah. And so I remember like, okay, is this everybody's next career? But I thought it was, this is fun. And everybody's doing it. And you guys are quality people putting it together, but not like anybody was going for the whatever Clio award or whatever award it would be.
Right.
So are you just then doing these kind of with Christina and your other cool friends, and then saying, hey, come over, I'm having a barbecue, let's watch it? Or are you doing them and actually posting them? Now you've taken them down, or where are they going? Are they just literally for you?
At first it was totally kind of a vanity thing. It was just for my fun and for their fun too.
Right.
And I would give them copies of whoever I had in the film and whoever helped make it. I mean, they would all have their own copy burn a DVD or a Blu-ray or something like that. And, and we would show it at parties or something like that. But then one day I was kind of inspired that I thought, I could actually like really, get serious, get lashed to the wheel and make a real feature. Because I have the resources to do it. I have the resources to the source for financing it, and at first it was very, micro budget stuff. And like in the first one, I mean, the actors were basically paid with booze and food.
I was going to say, yeah.
But then eventually I had to write some real checks.
Right.
But since I had the sources for funding, very modest things, I thought, I should really write a feature-length screenplay, produce it, and then just see what happens. And
what was the tipping, like, what was that thing? Like you're saying at some point, but
it was because I had, the stars were aligned in the sense that I had the actors,
right,
the DP, I had the crew, I had the location, I had props, I had the costumes, all within my reach.
Got it.
And I thought, this could be very interesting. And if nothing comes of it, I'll find something else to do and I'll have this cool Western movie that I made.
Right.
And so I made this thing, and it miraculously, somehow, almost simultaneously, I got a distribution deal. And that film, which was called A Prayer for the Damned, got into the London International Film Festival, where it won an award. So in early 2019, I think it was February, I flew to London with one of the co-stars, and we went for this 4 or 5 day film festival, and it was a blast. And I had the distribution deal all in the pocket and ready to go. And my distributor at the time expressed interest in more. I said, well, I just happen to have a script, which I'm going to make.
Oh, but wait.
And then he said to me, do you think you have 3 in you? I said, I can. And so I ended up making the first 3 almost back to back, which takes us to early 2020.
The next 3, how long are they?
They're all 90 to 100 minutes.
And you just happened to crank these out.
Well, I was writing scripts in my spare time.
I understand, but you were writing them and then you got them filmed, right?
Yes, because they're all 3 were Westerns, and I had this incredible advantage with the costumes and the weapons and the props and the actors. And, by now they were getting into some serious budgets by the time of the 3rd one, definitely. And then they basically came out one after the other. The first release I had was I think it was early March of 2020. Then my second one came out in July of 2020. And then the 3rd one came out in, I think it was April of 2021. Now, by this time, I had met with a gentleman named Alexander Nevsky, who had an interest in meeting me, as I had an interest in meeting him. And we met through my very dear friend and his friend, Sean Murray, whom Christina has had many drinks with at the Chop House. And Sean Murray is a fabulous composer. And
okay.
He's done scores for my last 3 movies. 4,
wow.
Excuse me.
And you're paying him. You're not, at this point, you're not paying Sean Murray in food and booze, or are you?
No. I'm paying Sean Murray his going rate.
Yeah, okay.
Plus, I got to give him booze and food.
And on top of it, right. Got it. Okay.
And Sean is also the son of the great Academy Award nominated actor Don Murray, who was the last living leading man up until his passing early this year to have acted opposite Marilyn Monroe in Bus Stop, a movie I'm sure you're familiar with.
Wow.
And the real coup was, and there's a whole funny story to this. Don Murray was actually in my 3rd movie called Promise.
Yeah.
And he has 3 scenes in it, 2 with me. And that was Don's last motion picture.
No way.
Yeah. And he was a blast to work with, Here's a guy I grew up watching, Conquest for the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. How did you get this guy? Through Sean?
His son, Sean, was a very dear friend of mine before I met his father. And I had actually, in this script called Promise, I had written this very integral part. It's a big part, even though it's only 3 scenes, but it's very integral to the story, to the moving of the story.
Okay.
And I wrote this part originally for my acting mentor, a gentleman named Clu Gulager. You look him up, he's done everything. And Clu he was very nice, but he said, Joe, I don't know. I just don't want to do anything like that anymore. But Clu would come visit me on set and just hang out, 89, 90 years of age.
And where is the set, by the way?
Well, one of them was out by Yucca Valley. There's a full Western town just north of Yucca called White Horse Ranch. We filmed a lot out there. I had a couple of locations up in Goleta that I filmed at. There's a Western town over in southern Arizona. We'll talk more about that. But anyway, so I offered it to Clu. Clu was like, of course, Clu got enticed to be in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin. And he was in that in a big scene with Margot Robbie.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I'm like, how did Quentin get him and I didn't? But
Yeah.
anyway, so I
Okay.
moved on. And there was another actor I admired for all my life, and he was in 12 Sam Peckinpah pictures, and his name was L.Q. Jones. And he was a great character actor, not just a character actor, he was a great actor, period. And I knew him. And I used to go over to his house and we'd sit there and we'd read through the script and everything. And he'd make suggestions. And I'd say, well, can we get you out to the desert and film? He's like, well, let me check my schedule. But he was always very cagey about it. And Sean and I were drinking at our watering hole called the Red Door in Toluca Lake, which is now long gone. And I was bemoaning the fact that my big, you know, character in this piece, I just can't lock him down. He goes, why don't you call Dad? And I go, Dad who? My dad.
So you didn't know this whole time, you didn't know that the dad was the famous guy?
Oh, yeah. No, I
but
knew.
You couldn't believe he was talking about him.
Yeah, but I knew who he was, and I knew he was Sean's dad, but I couldn't believe that there would be a level of interest. So he's like, email the script. Here's Dad's email. Email it to him. And here's the home phone number up in Santa Barbara. Call him, or he'll call you. I said, okay. So I emailed the script, figuring I'm never going to hear anything.
Yeah, like usual.
24 hours later, I get this call from an 805 area code. Is this Joe? Yeah, it's Don. Read the script. When are we doing it? And believe you me, Marley, stuff like that was so much more fun and exciting.
I'm sure.
And personally just brought me joy more so than years in commercial real estate.
Oh, I'm sure.
Which was not joyful.
Right, right. Because I would assume you were doing commercial real estate to pay the bills and everything else, not because you were in love with commercial real estate. So now you're actually in love with your stuff. And this guy's like, oh, why don't you call my dad? Like Mr., opposite Marilyn Monroe. And it's like the easiest thing ever. Mind-boggling. Okay.
Next thing I knew, 3 months, not even 3 months later, I was up there and I was shooting a scene. And then we went back at a later date and I got the rest of it. Then we put the film together. And then the lockdowns happened.
Right.
But that was a good time to be in editing and post-production.
Yeah, because your timing was amazing, right? Because you were going to... So how long did it take you approximately to shoot each of those following three versus how much time it took to be in editing and post-production?
Well, the first one I shot in segments. So we film for 4 or 5 days, take a break, come back 2 weeks later, film for 4 or 5 more days. At that time, that was about 15 days, something like that, all together. And then the second one, straight shooting. And then the second one was probably around 20. And I lost track of the third one, but it was more than 20, like 30.
Now, why did you do the 4 or 5 on, 2 weeks off?
A lot of it had to do with scheduling of the location. A lot of it was give myself a little bit of a comfort zone. So I was under no pressure to release these things.
Got it.
I mean, eventually when I finished the first one, I was, but I thought it would be at that point beneficial to take a look at what I had. Right. And it actually worked in my favor because I would take a look at the footage and I'd get new ideas and I'd write it down and I'd change the script and I'd make changes as I thought would be necessary and make the thing better. So, now the next three, they're on very rigid, tight schedules. We go.
Is that because you're more experienced? Is it because there's more money involved? All of the above? Okay.
All of the above, yeah.
Yeah. And you're dealing, I would assume, with the higher caliber of players, not just working for food and booze.
Sure.
Okay. And who edits? Do you edit? Were you editing these? So how does that work? I'm
involved in it.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there in the editing studio.
Okay.
And I tell the editor where I want the cuts and where it's placed. But there's really no exact definition to how many days. I mean, you could be in post-production. If you want to do it quickly, you could be in there for a month and a half. And if you want if you want to do it right, you could be about 3 months because it's very complicated. It's not just the editing, but it's the color. You got to get the color balanced. You've got to get the effects in. You've got to get the credits in. You've got to make any adjustments if there happens to be something from the 21st century that's in the background of the shot, which I've had before.
So
like,
what do you do about that? So let's say you're like, oh, shoot, I forgot that.
Well, in the old timey film days, that was very difficult to get like a 20th century water bottle out of the back of a scene that's set in the 1870s.
Right. So what do you do now?
Now it's a digital erase. You literally erase the image. Then you've got the musical composition.
Yeah.
That takes about 5 weeks.
Now, is the musical composition started before it goes?
In some cases, when I was doing the third movie, Promise, I was working with Sean Murray at that point, and I told Sean I would give him examples of what I wanted the score to sound like. I said, don't steal directly from Jerry Goldsmith or Elmer Bernstein,
Yeah.
or Ennio Morricone, but I want it to sound, I want this tone in it. Because but other than that, I just kind of let him have his day and he could do what he wants. And so he's thinking, and in that case, he did have music composed in advance. And there's one sort of little tune in that movie that the leading lady sings at a piano.
Do you want to start singing it?
I shall not sing it, no, because I have my regular mic, not my karaoke mic with the Elvis reverb on it. We don't have it.
Okay.
But he said we were going out to location, and he said, here, I have this little tune. I want you to throw it into this scene, put her at the piano. She doesn't have to play the piano. We'll work that in later, but have her sing this. And so I did. So sometimes stuff is worked out in advance, you know.
And then how do you do, like, okay, in the old days, it was called Foley, right? Like, is it still called Foley where you have like the horses clapping? Like
sure.
So how does that work these days? So let's say you have the Western and the camera, for whatever reason, doesn't pick up enough of the horses, galloping along. Is that what happens in post-production then?
That is, yeah.
So are you sitting there with the editor and you're like, oh, this is a big scene about horses and you can't really hear them. We need to insert
then we
it?
build it, and we literally go to a sound effects library.
Yeah.
And we look for different horse hoof sounds.
And then add that in.
I don't bring my horse into the studio.
Correct. Yeah. Okay, good.
Well, that would be pretty funny.
Although that would be, yeah.
Most of this stuff is in digital libraries now. But I have done some more traditional Foley stuff, like stepping on boards and stuff like that for footprints.
So from the perspective of the sound things, then it sounds like you would be in Canva looking for an image of something, right? Or you'd search the internet for something for your website, like royalty-free photo of a daisy or something that's modern. And then you pick the right one and insert it into your slide presentation. Got it. But that must be, I can't even imagine how time consuming that has to be.
Yeah, it's endless.
And do you like that part of it? Or do you just like shooting the movie, or is that necessary?
I do. And again, it's much more fun than waiting for a city or a county inspector to sign off on your building.
Yeah, well, I have plenty of experience with that. So you're telling, because I hear that part, I mean, I kind of get the movie piece, but I hear the part of sitting in a room with anybody, quite frankly, for hours at a time, days at a time, weeks at a time, and there's just no way. So you don't get antsy. You're not like, this should go faster. You're just enjoying the process.
I love the process because it's my process. I mean, I'm the director of all of these last 6 features, including the current 7th one, which we're in the middle of. But you have to embrace it, no matter how time-consuming, dull it may be, because you're creating your end product. If you just sit there and slough it off and tell the editor, yeah, you do it, I'll be back tomorrow, then stuff doesn't get done. And you have to be in on the whole thing. I'm not saying I don't take suggestions. I do.
No, I get it. But you're involved. You're still making the final call.
And in half the cases, it was my screenplay from the beginning. So I was absolutely determined to make it look, feel, and sound right, no matter what.
So when you say the look, feel, and sound, when you go into shooting each one of these,
right?
Because my theory with everything in life, at the end of the day, whether it's a party, a movie, anything, trying to get people to feel something different at the end or during it. So what's your goal? And is it different for every movie, or is it kind of the Joe Cornet productions of the world always are to make people feel XYZ? Or what was your original intention? What is it now?
Well, I think my intention always, first and foremost, is to make something that people are going to want to watch and have a lot of fun watching it. Even if it's a horror movie, I've made a horror movie too.
Right.
And I want them to have like a really fun ride. I want them
Okay.
to say,
Like ha ha fun or like just enjoyed that?
even if it's scary and terrifying, I
Yeah.
want them to be excited and thrilled by the whole experience.
Okay. And how do you translate that to a Western or each of the Westerns, and how do you make them unique?
Well, the first Western I made, A Prayer for the Damned, was directly an homage to some of the more out there and edgy and bizarre Italian Westerns of the late 60s, early 70s. The second movie, I didn't set out to make the majority of my films Westerns. That's just the way it happened. That's what I got. Because by the time I partnered with my producer
Right.
for the next three, that's what he wanted me for. He said, I know you can, I want you for this, you know. And by the way, well, I'll also give you a horror movie. So the first one was definitely that kind of Italian Western look, feel, and style.
Yeah.
The second one, what I was going for, there was a kind of a specific type of Western that was made from the early 60s until about 1971, and starting with The Magnificent Seven and going through with films like The Professionals and The War Wagon, and ending probably right around the time of Big Jake with John Wayne. And they were always just these big slam bang, shoot 'em up kind of good guys versus bad guys, and you're rooting for these guys to win with this big symphonic score. So that's what I went for in the second one. In the third one, definitely the Italian edginess, but I wanted it to have more pathos and have a real depth and substance to it. And I think I scored with it. At least some of these things behind me.
A lot of awards behind him next to that
That may
on-air
be a
sign.
testament. But the third one won 12 awards at the biggest Western film festival back in 2021. So I was going for something entirely different. I wanted something very serious, as I said, with pathos and you know, but also some joy in it too.
Yeah.
And then the next phase of I went into this thing called Gunfight at Rio Bravo, and I was pitched this idea of combining 80s action movie guys to a Western context. And I thought about it, and I thought, this is wacky enough that this could work. And it did. And then I did a horror film.
Christina was in that one, right?
No. Christina
for some reason, I thought she was in the horror film.
No, but Matt, her husband, was in the movie Promise.
Okay, got it. Okay, because I knew there was some kind of, okay, keep going.
Matt played a blind priest.
Okay, but yeah, okay.
It was grating.
I'm going to leave that alone because he and I have had many conversations about religion. But anyway, keep going.
So anyway, the horror film was kind of it was not like when you think horror film today and you think something that's just so out there and just
right.
It was more about the supernatural and had more of I tried to make it a little classier and more like a Dario Argento meets The Exorcist type of thing, you know.
Cool. Okay.
And then I went back and I made a sequel to Gunfight at Rio Bravo, which is out now. All these movies are out. You can see them. They're worldwide.
And where can everybody see them? Just we're going to talk about more of that later, but
generally most of them are available on Amazon Prime. I think some of them are on Tubi. I think some are on YouTube Movies. If you just Google my name and, you know, it'll go to the movie titles and it'll show where they're available. But the last movie we just came out with over the summer was taken from Rio Bravo. And again, it was sort of the 80s action guys.
Yeah.
And which was interesting because we actually got like action heroes from that era, like Cynthia Rothrock was taken from Rio Bravo doing her spider kicks and all that. It was a ton of fun.
How big is the cast? How big are the casts usually of these?
Well, the last two Westerns are pretty big because there's probably, you know, a dozen principals and then all the background actors and, you know, and we had more actors in the last two Westerns. Although I had a ton of actors in the movie Promise as well.
But how does all that back of that, like, I'm just thinking, I mean, from my event planning world, and Lord, you'll have, 8 valets and you'll have this and that. I mean, just the accounting components are such a freaking, how did all that back of the house stuff happen?
Well, much like in your world, and
Yeah.
you're the master at logistics and strategy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You really, I knew this before going into it.
Yeah.
You really have to plan ahead.
Yeah.
And you have to plan for everything. And you have to plan not only just the hiring of all these people. Initially I was doing everything myself.
Right.
And then I gradually let go and I would bring on more people to help me schedule and to book people. And then by the third one, I had, production assistants and so forth. But now, well, even back then I had contracts and, all the stuff you're supposed to have, insurance, what have you. But now it's even more strategizing because people don't think about this. Once you have your movie in the can,
Yeah.
A lot of filmmakers never finish their movies because they never anticipate, oh, I forgot about the cost of post-production.
And tell us about that. Since people are going to be listening to this at various stages of like movie knowledge, what goes into post-production, or what is it exactly?
Well, you've got, first and foremost, the editing of the film itself. You've got the coloring of the film, the sound effects, the visual effects.
What's the difference between visual effects and like coloring? Like, meaning you got to erase the water bottle from the background?
Well, no, that's another component. But like the coloring is the look of your movie. In other words, you just don't shoot a movie and then transfer your footage and that's what it is. Even though you may have an expert, which I do, in lighting and color shade, and my DP is an expert in all of that. You've got to think, how do I want the tone of this movie to look, the audience? You think of something familiar. Look at Gone with the Wind. Okay. I use that because that's a visually stunning color film. Well, because they blew up the colors or saturated the colors or did whatever they had to do. That's all part of the coloring process.
So on a microcosm, somebody could say that that's like, they could think of it as you take a picture on your phone and then they put it through an app and they make it bright or this and that. And you're doing it to the nth degree with every aspect of it. Okay. Yeah. Got it.
And then visual effects are, for instance, I had a very large explosion in one of my movies.
Intentional, I hope.
Oh yeah, we'll get into my unintentional explosion in a moment, Marley. But
yes, okay.
But we used explosives, real explosives, to blow up this big structure,
right?
And to blow these guys off of the structure who were all stunt guys. Okay?
Yeah.
And I said, we need more. So then you go in and you fill in more smoke, more flame, something like that. Okay.
Like from your visual digital library.
And with the sound, it's simply a matter of sometimes you'll have a gunshot, and we use blanks often on our shoots.
Like blanks like Rust, like they used in Rust, or blanks like real blanks?
That would never happen on one of my sets, I could assure you.
Okay, well, just checking.
But, you'll have I use what's called black powder in my blanks. And there's regular powder and there's black powder, and black powder gives you more smoke and some flame, But sometimes it's not enough because maybe the lighting is hitting it wrong. So you want to go back and you want to address that. And I said, well, I want more spewing out of that gun.
Got it.
You go fill in there.
Okay.
And then also with the sound, maybe the sound is not loud enough. And so you go and you beef it up a little bit. That's sound.
And how is there like a rule of like, in the restaurant business, it's like your food costs are typically X% and your labor costs are typically in your overhead. Does the movie business run in a similar thing? Like, do you kind of think I'm going to have X amount in production costs and then X amount in post-production, or how does that work?
Well, sure. Just like with your events, you have a budget that you work from. And I know that you do the budgets. I know you have somebody helping you with the budgets. Okay, you're going to do an event at Pierce Brosnan's house for 500 people. That's one kind of budget,
right?
Or you're going to do the private room at the Parkway Grill. Well, that's
totally right.
And you always have to have a budget, and you always have to have some degree of cushion because
Yes.
stuff is always unexpectedly higher.
I was going to say, is it ever for you unexpectedly lower? Okay, good. Because I just wanted to make myself feel better there. I was gonna, in case I've yet to find anybody in business who says, you know what? I just consistently put too much padding in there. It just never seems to happen.
Well, sometimes, sometimes people in any business, they do you a favor and they say, well, you know what, we're going to do this for this amount.
Sure, but in general, like the whole thing doesn't end up being that way.
No.
Nobody ever just says,
guess what? I'm going to gift you or I'm going to discount you because I love you so much. That has never happened to me.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear you say that. So,
everything is more expensive now.
yes. It's crazy. I mean, getting cheeseburgers for my kids I'm like, how? Like, how?
Yeah.
It's totally incredible. Okay, now, so when you're talking about, you've referenced your producer. So the producer is the money person for the movies, right?
Yes, in some cases. And there are also producers that don't give any money, but you give a producer credit to because they're doing something else for you.
So give us an example. Like, what would that be? Like, let me give you an example. Let's pretend a producer had a PR. I'm totally making this up. And the producer says, hey, I'm Joe Blow and I have a PR firm and I'm going to do all the PR around this movie. Or maybe it's a producer that has a post-production company.
All right, that's a perfect example. And that does happen.
Got it.
You would give that person, say, an assistant producer title or an executive producer title.
Got it. Okay. So they would come in and basically, it's like they might not be putting cash, but they're underwriting
your publicity.
Got it. Okay, perfect. So is that why every time you watch a movie, there's like 9,000 producers and Canal Films? And I'm like, who are all these and all their little...
That is often the case.
Okay. Because everybody's contributing some little piece of this. Now,
I could literally say that in many cases, not really with mine, but you will see producer names and the name of this producer or that producer. No one in the entire production has ever met nor seen that person, even though it's a real person.
So how did they get on there?
Because again, like you just said, Marley, they may have provided a product or a service or something that added to the value of the production.
Okay. Now, so is it kind of like acknowledgments in a book where sometimes though it's just gratuitous, like you're just thanking somebody to thank them, or do you not do that so much with production credit?
It can be overdone.
Yeah.
I don't think we do it.
Okay. But okay.
Pretty much the credits are people that are actually involved.
Okay. Now, when you talk about your producer, I mean, I'm not trying to talk out of school, so you can say you don't want to answer, but like, is your producer the person who is providing real financial backing? Okay. And does that person go in saying, I want X amount of return on my investment? Or do they go in saying, hey, as long as we break even, is it different for every movie? Does it go up? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Well, generally you will have a contract, a production contract. Yeah. In this case, I am the other producer or executive producer. I'm also always the director.
Right.
So I will typically sign a deal memo, as they say, which is a contract, and it will enumerate the rate of return. And it's never we're just going to put this out there, and when it starts making money, I'll start giving you checks. It does guaranteed benchmarks that obviously it has to hit to recoup its cost.
Okay.
And, part of that cost is my time and effort, his time, and so forth.
And is it a standard thing, or is it kind of like?
Well, that procedure is standard,
but the
change for each production.
Got it. And how important would you say is chemistry in terms of the relationship, like somebody like you would have with your financial producer?
Well, it's key because, it's like with anything, you have to, hopefully everybody gets along and trusts each other. And I've been very lucky that way because this is a nasty business.
So that's also why I'm asking, because sometimes I would imagine that you'd be like, oh my God, like, well, let's say this guy said to you, I want you to make, I don't know, 10 remakes of Gone with the Wind and I'll give you X amount of money. Are you going to do it? Or are you just like, no, I can't stomach that? Like, where does that, you know what I'm saying? Where does the creativity / money, because sometimes in events we sell our souls. I hate to say it that way, but you're like, I will work with somebody who's high maintenance and a witch and whatever because I'm getting paid so much money.
Well, that's a very good question because as much as I love the creative side, as well as I know you love the creative side,
100%, which is why I'm asking the question, because it can get you in trouble.
you have to, at the very end of the day, be a businessman.
Right.
And you have to think of it as a business. So when you're coming to the end of your production, your post-production, you don't just like push your deliverables to your distributor and say, okay, put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
No, you have then, see, it's all about strategizing. So you strategize for the actual shooting portion of it. You strategize for the post-production. And then probably if you've done all the right things for those two phases, the most important strategy is how you get it out there. So films just don't get finished and then just put right out there on a streaming platform. There's a lot of considerations about timing, the time of year, how close is it to your previous release? Is it conflicting with anything that might be out there that might be similar? Do you release it?
And why are they even in theaters for a day? Is that just so that they can say they were in theaters? Is it because they're testing it out and think it might be more than a day and they want to see how it does, or
both?
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your take on AI? Because
I have no opinion on AI because
really?
it's not something that, at least now, that I use. It's not something I'm planning on using.
And it's not something, then I think we can extrapolate, that is cutting you out of your business.
It's not cutting me out, but I can understand how if I made my living as a background or an extra, and then all of a sudden they can digitize me 1,000 times in the background.
Yeah.
So just to be very simplistic, I can understand how that would be upsetting.
Yeah. Okay.
And I wouldn't worry so much about somebody digitizing a celebrity.
Right.
There were obviously legal complications to something like that.
Right.
But it's a fun technology to fool around with on Instagram.
Yeah.
But it has no interest to me because I'm into the nuts and bolts of writing the screenplay, creating the movie. And
how do you think, what amazes me about you is that you actually, because this town is full. Like chock full, like 99.9% of everybody, it seems here, that's involved in the movie business. It's like, oh, I'm a producer, I'm a director. And nobody ever gets jack actually done. Like, that's not true. Only have you gotten this stuff done and you've actually made money, but you've actually gotten awards. Like, you could actually go find the thing and watch it. How have you done that versus everybody else who just freaking can't?
Well, as I said at the beginning, my journey here is unique. And it's very different from most people's journeys because I did this because I just decided one day I was going to do this. And I thought it would be one time and one time only. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be working on my 7th feature.
I would have think that would be like, oh, you're just like, well, I was in commercial real estate, I'm going to do this once. Okay, next. I would think that would be like, oh, but you haven't worked your whole life in film and all this other stuff. But in your case, it's been the exact opposite.
Right. And I would not use myself as an example of the way to do it because.
Why? It sounds like it went perfectly.
I think that what you could use as an example is my dedication, my just sticking to it. And
so is that your secret sauce?
I think so.
Your dedication and your.
So I think so. I just remaining. This is my vision. This is what I want to get out there. I'm not, I'm hopefully making these things for other people to watch and have fun and be amused.
Right.
I'm not really, when I create even the first one, when I was making that, I'm not creating them thinking, okay, now what's going to sell? Now
that's very interesting though.
That's not a great business model, by the way.
No, but
it worked with me because I had the drive and I had the perseverance. And most people are knocked to the side of the curb in this biz because they don't have the perseverance and they get tired of being beat up and knocked around and being told what to do or being told, we don't want your product. I mean, I've had doors shut in my face.
But Joe, How many of them could have gotten shut? I mean, it must have been a relatively quick and short shutting because you were in commercial real estate and all of a sudden you're getting all these film awards.
Well,
So you have to be a lot more talented than most people.
I won't name names, but
Okay.
by the time of the second film that I did,
Yeah.
I started to get this thing. I started to get, I really don't like that guy because he has no business being here.
Yeah.
No business being here. I've been slugging it out.
Right.
Working
he doesn't deserve
as
it.
a gaffer, for 25 years, and this guy comes along and he does this.
Right.
I hate his content. I hate his product. I hate him.
Right.
The usual. And those, by the way, are some of my favorite emails. My favorite one of all time was one I got. I don't know who these people are, but I get stuff, and it was actually in a DM several years ago.
Jesus. Yeah. Okay.
You suck, and I hate everything you do. I should have printed that out and put it on my office.
I was going to say I just got one exactly the same where it was just going on. And I was like, never met this person, never had any experience with my company, with me, with whatever. It just is like a blanket. I don't know why. And it seems like all this stuff is getting worse. I don't know. It seems like because you can be anonymous and everybody can just be an armchair critic.
I think that's it.
You're like, okay, great. Next thing. What do I do with that? So what's your advice for people who want to get into this business?
Well, my first piece of advice is don't. If you really want to do it, I would say stick to your guns, remain authentic, meaning true to yourself. Don't try to sell yourself as being something other than what you are.
So meaning if you love Westerns, keep doing Westerns. If you love, whatever, Gone with the Wind, then make that work.
But don't try to look at what is currently the range of the moment,
right?
Fad or thing, and say, I want to do something like this, copy this, even though, most of my stuff can be called derivative because
there's a difference between inspiration and copying.
Everything's derivative.
Well, right. I mean, I think part of that is you've also got to communicate the vision to other people. So it has to be it's like a combination of an iPhone with the VCR that you do so that you can explain what it's supposed to be. Otherwise.
Exactly. And be your authentic self.
Well, and you definitely live your brand in and out. And so on that note, how can everybody find you? If you got them to do one thing other than download, like, and comment that you're fabulous, what would you want them to do? What's the one movie, the project that you're like, go start here?
I would start with my third film called simply Promise. Okay.
And why?
Because I think it's one of my best, and I think I put everything into that film.
Okay.
There's also a book version of that film that's written by a great author, a short novella by L. Marlowe. You could look that up on Amazon, but just look up Promise.
Okay.
That would be good. And I'd like them to see Gunfight at Rio Bravo.
Okay.
And its sequel, Taken from Rio Bravo.
Okay.
And my horror movie, Night of the Caregiver.
Awesome. Okay, I love that.
And you could find me on Facebook under my name, Joe Cornet, and you could find me on Instagram under San Rafael Productions, just like San Rafael Avenue right down the street here.
Yeah, but we have an international audience. So Rafael is spelled Rafael.
That's correct. Thank you, Marley.
Okay, no problem.
And you can find me there. I'm also on X under my name as well. Actually, I think on X, I'm Cornet_Joe.
Okay, well, we'll put that in. We'll do some research and we'll put that in the show notes.
And I would love to have people check out my new book, which is A Prayer for the Damned and Other Tales of the West.
I love it. And where can they get it?
They can get it at barnesandnoble.com. They can get it at Amazon.
Awesome.
And they could probably go to a Barnes and Noble bookstore and find a copy or two of it. And I'll be doing my book signing, by the way.
Yes.
December the 28th on Magnolia Avenue at Runout Groove Records. Posted on my site. It already is. So please come out and see me and I'll sign your book for you.
Awesome.
And all these films I just mentioned are all streaming on, for sure, Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
And I believe they're also on Apple TV for renting or buying.
Okay. Well, everybody has plenty of things to go check out. And I love especially the new book, and rate Joe 5 stars on Amazon or on Barnes and Noble. I just have to say on behalf of Christina Pasadena and yours truly, we thank the Beast for coming on.
I like my code name, by the way.
I love your code name, The Beast. We have to do a follow-up regarding Dean Beatty and how he took care of my pigs. And,
that was a great story.
Just check in all about that. So you guys, that's a tease for the next time I have Joe on. But Joe, I can't thank you enough. Such an honor to have you. And we will all check out your stuff.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for listening to the latest episode of Every Day's a Train Wreck. Please follow, like, comment, rate 5 stars, slide into Joe's DMs, but only with positive stuff. And this is Marley Majcher, the conductress, signing. Thank you guys.
Thank you.